Welcome to Enlighten Up with Christy, the podcast where you learn to choose yourself, rewrite your story, and create love, success, and purpose from the inside out. I'm your host, Christy, and here we go, beyond surface level change into real transformation. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Enlighten Up with Christy. It's been quite some time since we've gathered here together, and I am so excited to give you an update and what's going on over here in Gonzalo and my life. So for those of you that follow us, we made a big move from Florida over to beautiful Los Angeles, California. You know, it's so interesting because for years and years and years, I really pushed against moving to Los Angeles. Now, for those of you that have not read my book, LOL, probably don't know that it was a childhood dream of mine to go into film and television and to be an actress. Well, when I decided to have my boys and raise them in a small country town in Kansas, I put that dream aside. And it's interesting because I remember the day that it happened. I was standing outside of my house we couldn't afford in the small country town with my ex-husband. And I remember just crying to him. I literally had tears coming down my face. And I said, I want to go live my dream. He said, what do you expect us to do? Just pick up and leave and just go? And I said, yeah, that's what we need to do. And he goes, Christy, we don't have the money. And he was right. We didn't have extra money. Like most of the time, I would write a check for groceries, hoping that my check would deposit into the bank account and before I started, bouncing checks just to pay for groceries. And, it was a really challenging time, but I had this dream. I looked at him and I said, so what if I make $10,000 a month? Would we then be able to go? And he looks at me like, number one, you're crazy. Like, how are we going to make $10,000 a month? And now we're talking 24 years ago, right? So I said, you know what? I don't know how I'm going to do it, but when I'm going to get to 10,000 a month and then I can go live my dream. So at that point, I surrendered and I left it up to the creator. I had no idea what I was doing. Actually, at that time, I was shooting models for a living. Sometimes I would shoot 10 models in a day. I did some acting on not real acting. It was like one-liners and commercials. So that was my bread and butter. And yet I still believed there had to be a way. There had to be a way. And I was on a photo shoot one day and a woman walked into my life and changed my life forever and introduced me to a health and wellness beauty brand. And I launched, I guess, a career in that because I saw that I could become someone, I could do something important in the world. And so, believe it or not, it was probably about a year and a half or 2 years into it that I hit that goal that I had originally asked my husband if we could move once I hit that number. And what was interesting was that at that point, I was touching so many people's lives that it was so fulfilling. And I felt like I was making a significant impact. I was growing as a person. I felt like I had purpose. I felt like I had drive. I felt like the sky was the limit. And so I put my dream on the back burner. Actually, I even remember telling myself, like, maybe that was never my dream. Maybe I really didn't want to do that. Maybe that was just something I made up out of survival because those of you that know my story, living, being homeless as a kid and having abusive fathers that were drug addicts and alcoholics and living on welfare most of my life, like the only thing for me that would, in my opinion, save my life was to go to Hollywood because I would sit in front of the TV and I would watch these actors and I'd want what they had. I wanted their life. They looked happy. They looked free. And I equated stardom in Hollywood to that. And so there was this little voice in the back of my head that said, you know what, maybe that was just a joke. That wasn't really what you wanted to do. And so I continued to build with that company for over 20 years, touched thousands of lives around the world. And it was one of the most profound experiences of my life. And I would never trade it for anything because it gave me the number one thing I wanted, which was to be a mom and to raise a family and to raise incredible humans and give them the life that I never got to experience. So that was my number one, period. But there was always that voice in the back of my head. And even when I built my dream home with my ex-husband, I put a movie room in my basement complete with movie chairs, movie posters, because I had produced a documentary at the time. I even had that in there, and I had somehow wound up on the red carpet with Lou Ferrigno and Ben Stiller. I don't even know how I attracted these things, but it always kept circling back around. Jumping forward, for those of you that don't know, my ex and I got divorced around probably 7 years ago, and I met my current love of my life, and he lived in LA before we met. He loved LA, loved it. And he would say, I want to go live there. I'm like, there is no way in heck I'm going to live there. There's no way. And I would make fun of different aspects of it, and not in form of the people, but there was a pretentiousness that I did not admire that I had experienced, because for those of you that followed us during the camping van days, we lived in a camper van in the woods. For me, that was like the most incredible time of my life, was being in a camper van with no other responsibilities in the open road and having experiences and just being free. Like, for me, putting myself into Hollywood was like, oh my God, are you kidding me? Why would I do that? But last October, Gonzalo, has his ceremonial cacao company, Alma Cacao, and he was doing pretty well in Florida, but so many people were requesting it in California and along the coast. We just started getting this feeling that he needed to build his business here. And at the same time, I was in this meditation, and it literally, the download came like a waterfall of inspiration. And the message was, you need to have no regrets. So whenever you leave this earth, hopefully it's, 50 years from now. By the way, I'm turning 50 this week, which is really crazy to think that I've already spent 50 years on this planet. But I got this download that said, you need to live with no regrets. You have to go. You have to go take acting lessons. You have to go try, because you're going to regret never trying it if you don't do it. And it was this energy that I hadn't felt in a really long time. And I remember I immediately texted my boys and their girlfriends and wives in the family text group. And I said, guys, I think I'm going to LA to live my dream. And I was a little bit nervous because they all also carried kind of a similar belief about the area. And the excitement that came from the text messages of just like, oh my gosh, you're going to kill it. Like, Mom, this is totally you. This is what you're supposed to do. It was like, I just started crying. And even though I didn't necessarily need their approval, it was this belief that gave me permission to fly, right? I know some of us struggle oftentimes with needing the approval of our loved ones before we venture into the unknown. And because a lot of people are afraid to jump, right? Because the one thing we worry about is, what if I fail? But the truth is that we should always ask ourselves, what if I succeed? What if I really succeed? But wouldn't it feel worse if you get to the end of your life and you look back and you say, God, I had a chance to try it at least, and I didn't because I was afraid. I was afraid of what people might think, afraid of failing. We all know that in order to get anywhere, we literally have to fail forward. And so, I was thinking to myself, like, I don't even know. I don't even know if I'm going to like it. And so I decided. Gonzalo came home and I said, I want to go to LA to pursue my acting career. And he's like, what? And it was this thing. So we literally packed up our stuff and we moved very quickly. And here we are. And I've been in acting lessons now for the last month and a half with Ivana Chubbuck, who I actually went on to ChatGPT, love it, and said, who's the absolute best in LA? And she was the first one that popped up. She's worked with almost everybody in Hollywood. And I messaged her instantly and I said, this may sound crazy, but I am going to be 50 and I'm moving to LA to pursue the dream that I gave up to raise my family. And she said, when can you get here? And it was like another sign for me that I had support and that I could jump. So at this point, I've definitely had some doubts about my ability. I've wondered if it's really where I'm supposed to be at times because I love doing so many other things. I love doing the relationship and business and spiritual coaching I do. It really feeds my soul. As you know, this is called Enlighten Up with Christy because I love to talk about enlightening concepts and spirituality. And so I'm excited though. And I think that at the end of the day, I'm also showing myself that it's never too late. It's never too late to try that one thing that's been knocking. And I want to remind you a Kabbalistic concept is that if you have a desire placed in your heart, that is because it is meant for you. That is because it already exists in the infinite world. All right. There is a plane of existence that your dream is already played out, and you just have to tap into that. I met a guy last week, and he said he was an astrophysicist. And I said, "Wow, okay. So you're an underachiever." And we laughed a little bit, and it was the creator never put the desire in my heart to be an astrophysicist, right? So it's one of those things that I really do believe that what is by design is for you if you just can truly tap in and listen to what your heart is asking of you to do. And sometimes, like I will say for really the last, let's just say 6 or 7 years, I had to sit in the quiet. Like we moved to Naples, Florida. And for those of you that have never been to Naples, Florida, the average age is 65, which is great if you're 65. But for us, we were in our 40s and a lot of life to live and experience. And we're both entrepreneurs and everything closed at 8 o'clock at night. The only thing to really do was go out to dinner, go to the beach or go to Topgolf, which was not our jam. For the last 3 or 4 years that we were in Naples, it was about healing. And in that healing time, I really got to look at those parts of myself that I never had the opportunity nor chose to really look at. That meant the childhood wounds, that meant the adult wounds, that means the forgiveness I never forgave, the people that I never forgave, that meant forgiving myself, that meant really questioning my identity, who I was, where I was going, and where I came from, and what was the meaning of it all. Why did I choose this existence to do the things that I did and to make friends or make lovers with the ones I chose? I really got to contemplate and sit with all of it, which I had never given myself permission to do. So I want to encourage all of you, if you have a knock at the door, or maybe you are meant to be in the secrecy of the silence, it's okay. It's like it's sacred silence. It's not supposed to be, it doesn't mean that that's the mountain you're going to die on. It just means that right now you need to be in that void. You need to be listening to yourself and taking care of yourself and nurturing yourself. But we always like to go back to recognizing that if we're not getting the things that we desire in our life, it's because we're not giving. And we're going to do a whole special episode on giving and what giving means. And we don't need to give to get because that's never the right intention. And the things you get back are never everlasting when we give to get. So give to yourself and give yourself a gift, I would say. And that is to listen to yourself. Listen to your dreams, listen to your heart, listen to your angels and your spirit guides. And when in doubt, pray. I've underutilized prayer for most of my life. I remember when I was Miss Kansas Teen USA, and I was really good friends with Julianne Kaulukukui she was Miss Hawaii Teen USA. And she was such a spiritual, beautiful soul. And she said that every time she went to the restroom, she decided to say a prayer. And I always literally stayed with me because I always forget to pray. And so much of the Kabbalistic wisdom teaches us that it's so important to pray and to speak out to the Creator and ask the Creator for your desires and almost to some degree demand, Creator, I want this. This is what I desire. And yet I think sometimes our desires aren't bold enough. They're not strong enough. And oftentimes we don't believe in them enough. And that's why they never come. And so give yourself, again, that gift to sit with yourself and ask yourself, what do I want? When I'm not trying to please the world, when I'm not trying to please my parents or my children or my coworkers or my friends, what the heck do I want? We only have one life here and we get this one shot here to have lots of experiences, lots of different friends, lots of different journeys, but yet we really imprison ourselves because we're trying to fit the mold. You are not moldable. You're not meant to be a mold that is like anybody else. And it's time to set yourself free, but there are ways to do it consciously. And that's why we call this Enlighten Up with Christy, because I want you to make enlightening choices. I don't want you to fall into the dark night of the soul and drown like I had to so many times because I didn't have tools and wisdom. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. I'm so grateful to have you here on this journey with me, and together we will make the world a better place. So enlighten your day, enlighten your week, and enlighten your life. Until we see you next time. Bye, everyone. If you're ready to go deeper, head to the link in the show notes to work with me or join one of my programs. And if this episode impacted you, leave a review. It helps more people find this work. I'll see you next time on Enlighten Up with Christy.